I'm missing home, so I want something very Portuguese and one of my favorite foods. Today we're gonna recreate a video and a recipe that I have already made in the past, but I think it didn't have the amount of love that it needed because it's such a good recipe. So let's make it. Today we are making codfish alagareiro, bacalhau alagareiro. Instead of codfish, we're gonna use tofu and for the fish flavor, nori sheets. Let's get started. Stay cozy, my people. So for this recipe, we're gonna start with the sauce. It's gonna be something simple, but we want to emulate fish and codfish. If you don't know, or if you never had codfish, codfish is quite a salty fish. Normally in Portugal, we eat it like salted and dried. So then you kind of need to add the hydration, soak it for days, and then eat it. But because this is a vegan channel, I'm vegan. I'm missing home, but I'm not that crazy. I'm not that desperate yet. So we're gonna add the fish flavor to the codfish. For that, we're gonna use miso. Then I also have here already pre-bought fish flavoring, and it's pretty much just the garlic, sea salt, onion powder, paprika, things like that, thyme and herbs and rosemary. So this is something I'm gonna add to the sauce. I will also add a bit of coriander. At the end, you're gonna need to add coriander on top or parsley, so that's already gonna be on the tofu. And then, of course, white pepper. Portuguese people love white pepper. I'm gonna start by adding 1.5 tablespoons of miso and 50 milliliters of hot water. In this case, warm water. We're gonna dissolve the miso. The only tiresome step in this recipe is the soaking of the sauce and making sure that everything is quite balanced and that the tofu has the flavors inside. Because you know, tofu it's bland, it has no flavor at all. So you kind of need to be the one adding your flavorings. Hence, you kind of need to do the sauce beforehand. But once the sauce is done, it's smooth sailing. I just tried a bit of the miso just to understand how salty it is, and it's extremely salty. We're gonna then add white pepper, coriander, and the fish flavoring salt. Combine everything. And in this step, I will be adding then the olive oil. Portuguese people cook with a lot of olive oil, so if you're gonna make any Portuguese recipe, just think about adding olive oil to it. Bless me. The pepper is strong. Lastly, I will be adding cooking white wine, 50 milliliters as well. I'm giving you the measurements for 500 grams of tofu. And also we will gonna have potatoes and everything, so you wanna have enough sauce to not have a dry meal. Our food is set. We're gonna cut our tofu. I'm gonna cut the tofu to emulate the codfish. So I want big fillets of tofu, just for presentation's sake. But if you wanted to have more the flavor of the marinade, you also should already know that the smaller the tofu, the easier for the flavor to come in. This is the tofu that I'm using. It's from Lidl. Now, let's cut our tofu. I want fillets. Our tofu is cut, so let's add it to the marinade. If you have already some seaweed flakes, you can add it. I do not have any yet, so I was just gonna add the fish flavor towards the end once my tofu is ready to be cooked. Fish flavor with the nori sheets, of course, because now the marinade is adding it the salty and the sea inside the tofu, and that's what we want. Because you know, codfish is not just like a one type of flavor profile kind of meal. So it is salty, but it's also really creamy. It has a lot of layers. In this case, we will not have the layers because we have a block of tofu. but still gonna taste absolutely amazing, and it's gonna hit the spot. So this is now what it looks like. I am gonna let it sit for a while, but before we do that, we're gonna add our garlic. I almost forgot the garlic, and that is a crime because this recipe has so much garlic. So this is around 5 to 6 cloves of garlic, and that's what we're gonna put. The staples of the Portuguese cuisine is truly garlic, onions, bay leaves, wine, salt and pepper. That's what you're gonna find in Portuguese cuisine. Salt and pepper, but truly just mostly white pepper. Okay. It already smells like fish. Crazy. We are excited. This is just what we needed. I'm wondering if I should make more to bring to our friends. I use 500 grams of tofu. I'm thinking if I should use another package. Okay, do you wanna come and try to see if you like it so far? Try the marinade. On your thing? On your wrist? Try.
Why? It's spicy.
Really? You are not white.
No, it's
Sorry.
It's good.
I just put black pepper.
Yeah, it's good.
Isn't it fishy? A bit.
A bit.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Should I make more? More than...
Oh yeah, make more. Like this, I have lunch tomorrow.
But do you like the marinade?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just make this and then...
Why?
What do you mean why? I thought. I'm sorry.
Make it now so that we have lunch tomorrow. This tofu is, I would eat all of this myself.
It's 500 grams
Yeah.
of tofu.
Did you not see me eat 500 grams of pasta the other day?
I'm not gonna comment on that. I will do, suppose we do 1 kilo of tofu. This is insane. I will cut my tofu.
There's nowhere to be.
Well, now the tofu will be marinating ideally overnight. But since we don't have overnight time, you'll be marinating for 4 hours. And then we are ready to cook. Nice. Nice. This is the type of meal. It's a crowd pleaser, guys. Everybody will be happy to have this, okay? Because it's so like flavorful. It's insane. I think if there ever comes a time where you're like, oh, I want to make something special for my family, come to this channel, check this recipe, and you will not, I assure you, you will not be disappointed. So I'm just making sure all the pieces of tofu, all 1 kilo of tofu is completely submerged in the sauce, and making sure that it will be hydrated by the time we want to cook. And the cooking, it's just oven, okay? Once everything is set, we're just gonna make sure to add this to the oven with the potatoes, and it should be set. This might be one of my favorite, I already said that, right? It's one of my favorite Portuguese dishes. I miss home. So I'm gonna put this in the fridge and just let the magic happen. Good. Nice. I wonder if I should put more salt, but I will not. Then we can put more salt on the potatoes, etc. So this goes to the fridge. So this is our seaweed. We're gonna prep it, and pretty much you divide it into 2. The seaweed in half. We have 2 layers, and then we cut the seaweed again in half. So you will have 4 pieces of seaweed. This will add the color, like the skin of the cod fish, and also it will add the fish flavor to the tofu. We will need at least 3 and half again. So this is what it looks like. Our seaweed is ready to be used. In the meantime, I'm just gonna keep it inside the bag so it doesn't dry out and get softer. Here I have my onions. We need to peel them and chop them. I will be using 2 big onions But the same as the garlic, use whatever tickles your fancy. You can use a lot of it, not so much, it's just up to you. If you guys are curious about more Portuguese recipes or Portuguese food in general, please let me know. I love our cuisine, and when I started becoming vegan, I had a time where I was obsessed with making Portuguese dishes vegan, from chanfana to even pastel bacalhau to pastel de nata. So in case you are interested in that, just let me know, and we can actually spend some hours together just going over it, and it's always a pleasure to cook something that reminds me of home and my family. Trying to find mandolin. Where is it? Oh, here. So now with the mandolin, we're gonna chop the onions. Just make sure. This is the only way I can chop onions without crying. It's quite simple. You have these picks on the side, and then you just stick it to the onion. It grabs it, and then you do this back and forth movement. The onion stays inside here. No crying, no damage. Kind of amazing, no? I'm always scared of using such devices because it's always a danger with your fingers. But when it's onions, because they are quite big, it's always no stress. I'm just cutting the corners because everything should be used, and there is no waste in this kitchen, or we try to not have so much waste. So now I'll add everything there. So I'm gonna leave this on the side. Now it's time for me to boil the potatoes. All the preparation is pretty much done. Now let's start with the potatoes. Normally we use smaller type potatoes. However, I think these are the only ones we have, so this is the ones I'm gonna use. We're gonna bring this to a boil for 20 minutes for them to be a bit softer, and then we're gonna mash them, transfer it to the oven tray, and once the tofu is ready and it has been marinated for 4 hours, we will then create our potato layer, our onion layer, and then our delicious codfish layer, which is tofu layer. And everything goes to bake for roughly 45 minutes. You bring it off the oven and you are ready to have the most delicious meal ever. Once the potatoes have been boiled for 20 minutes, we remove them. That's it. I just want to give you an advice. Cooking potatoes, it's like cooking pasta. So you want the water to be super salty. Now I'm gonna bring this to a boil. My people, so potatoes have been boiled. I'm gonna strain the water, and then we're gonna let them cool down a bit before we mash them. The type of potato. My people, sorry, I don't have the microphone on. Pardon, I didn't have the microphone on. My people, can you hear me? So, the potatoes are boiled and cooked. I'm gonna strain it, and then we're gonna let it cool down a bit, because or else it's too hot for us to mash them. The type of potatoes we're gonna do, we call them punched potatoes, because we're gonna punch them. Just give it a little dent, ladylike, nothing crazy. Here we have our cooked potatoes. Now we wait for them to cool down. Potatoes are cooled, let's punch them. If they're too hot, I will say the tip that I would give you is to have like your oven mitt and just use it to protect your hands. That's what we want. We want the skin, and when it goes to the oven, the skin's gonna be crispy. This is gonna be just the perfect potatoes. This is my favorite way to have potatoes. Even though my potatoes are not too hot, it's still much easier to crush them. With the knit. I put too much pressure on that one. It's okay. Okay, so the bigger ones, that's why it's easier to make this with the smaller potatoes, like the new potatoes we call them in Portuguese, because they are like much smaller. These big ones, you can't, unless you are really aware of your strength, it's complicated. So I'm gonna transfer the potatoes to the oven tray. and they will be going to the oven at the same time as our tofu. So let me just set this aside. We're gonna add, of course, a bit of salt on top. I like to cook with gross salt, like the big salt particles, because I think it's just much easier for me to understand how much I need. So this type of salt that is actually, the crystals are big, because it's easier to control. I feel like the table salt, it's just for the table, just for the people that still need that extra sodium, not for cooking. But you boo, you do you. Now let's take care of our tofu. As you can see, our tofu has been marinating in this beautiful sauce. What I'm gonna do is lather the first layer with olive oil. I told you already, this is Portuguese style recipe, so you're gonna have a lot of olive oil. We will also gonna use some bay leaves. I have some fresh bay leaves in here, but you can just use the dry ones like everybody. So our first layer would have the sliced onions. You might be thinking, Vanessa, this is a lot of onions. It's just me, I don't need that many. Okay, don't put, but if you wanna have a delicious tofu, do as I say and as I do. So all these onions will be caramelized and they will just add so much to the recipe, so don't worry, it's not too many. Now, do you remember the seaweed that we cut in 4? It's time to use them. So I will keep my seaweed on the side. You know, seaweed has the rough part and the silken part. I'm gonna put the rough part outside and the silk part inside. What I mean by that, you have your tofu, rough part outside, silk part inside. That's it. See how it looks already? So I'm thinking, how am I gonna set this? Because I have so much tofu here. We used 1 kilo of tofu, my people, but it should be fine. Although the seaweed is quite doesn't have a lot of flexibility because it's still crispy, with the juice of the sauce it will just mold to the tofu and it should be fine. Don't worry. If you want it to completely mold and be already wrapped on the tofu, you can just put some extra sauce on it and wrap it around. That's it. But it's pretty straightforward. The rest of the sauce we will also be adding on top, so you don't need to worry about having a loose tofu without actual seaweed. This is a trust the process type of recipe. You might be thinking, Vanessa, this will not work, but I guarantee you, this type of meal, we normally eat it Easter time or even Christmas, at least in my family. But every restaurant that you go in Portugal, you will find the codfish version, and is a crowd pleaser, I'm telling you. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 pots of tofu, and now we're gonna add the sauce on top. You see, I'm gonna add the sauce on top and extra salt. See, that's where you have it, our fish. I will be adding more white wine because the recipe requires a little bit of more. Don't worry, because once you put it in the oven, you're gonna be cooking all of this for 45 minutes. So the alcohol will disappear and it will just be this delicious sauce that comes with cooked wine. So don't be alarmed. Salt on top, because codfish is a bit salty. And here we have it. What do you think? Do you believe me now? Oh, exciting. I will be baking our tofu for 45 minutes at 170 degrees Celsius. This is good. The food is ready. Let me give you a little glimpse. Oh my goodness. Come up close. See this? Do you see this? Oh my goodness. Look at it. Oh my goodness. Look what we made. Oh. The smell, absolutely amazing. Intoxicating, one might say. Oh, it smells so good. So, in case you're wondering, Vanessa, were you able to do it? Of course I was. Of course I was. Look at it. Look at it. Oh, your paw. I wish you could try this. I wish we could just sit around and share this meal together. So good. If you want to see the potatoes, here they are. Golden brown. Beautiful. Let's move on to the montage of me putting the plate, making it beautiful, making the thumbnails, and if you still need a push to try this recipe, let this be your push. I just came from the gym, did some body pump, and this is the tofu that is left. So it's safe to say someone really enjoyed the meal, which is good. So now let me make my plate. Matt also made some rice on the side because I think I'm sure we didn't have enough potatoes. So let us add my potatoes, tofu on top. Parsley. Let us eat with everything. Tofu, potatoes. This is our first bite. This is nice. Now I understand why you had so much. So nice. Go make this. Do you approve of the tofu? You can have one of my potatoes. Thank you for watching another video. I adore you. I'll see you next time. Mwah. All my love always.